Welcome back to the Huddle. Welcome to Monday Morning Leadership Huddle. Good morning, leaders. I'm your favorite neighbor, Jay Murray. This is where I provide you with tips and tools to drive your leadership purpose. What's going on, family? Let me just take this moment to just say thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for sharing, liking these episodes of Monday Morning Leadership Huddle. To be honest, I don't even know what episode that we're on. I have been in this just creative flow where I'm just releasing. Where again, I wanted to have them on a weekly basis, and so that is my goal. But hey, if I fall off 1 or 2 weeks, hey, don't get mad. It's just that hey, I need time to replenish. But for the moment, I am just in this creative flow, so I really appreciate that. And as I kind of think about and just give you some more BTS kind of behind the scenes of how these things been coming about and the topics. I pretty much pick and select the topics based off my interactions with people. Conversation I have at work, conversation I have with my wife, my family, my mentor, friends, and there just will be a thought, that just kind of comes in my mind, and it's like, you know what, we need to really talk more about that. I remember the peace, leading with inner peace. That was from a conversation I had during scriptures and squats. We was talking about Ephesians, and it was just such a wonderful conversation that I just like, hey man, we need to talk more about. I need to provide a leadership lens to that. So again, there's necessarily not a rhyme or reason, of these topics. I don't have a running list of topics that I just, hey, I'm gonna do this today. They just flow, they just flow. And I kind of I like that process. And today is one of those topics, family. This has been it's been on my heart for quite some time now, to where I have heard it in sermons. I have talked about it in other at work and with friends, and to where it has kind of been it's been this running theme, around just different things I've been encountering. And it's about perspective, leadership perspective. And as I was preparing, planning for the episode, I came across a quote that a thought that I put as a quote. I guess it's from myself. It is a quote, and I posted it on IG. That I came up with some years ago, when I was traveling to Arizona. Me and my wife was out there. I was doing a extended stay, because I was out there for work, and my wife came out there, spent some time with us, spent time with me, and we just stayed out there. And we were at a spa, and we was, if you've been to Arizona, we was out in Scottsdale area. This was in Fountain Grove, I think is the name of it. And beautiful mountains. I mean, the scenery is just so gorgeous. It's one of my favorite places to go. And we were up on the mountain, and we can look down below the mountain. You can look 2 or 3, maybe more miles out, seeing these homes, and seeing these different valleys. And the thought just came to me, man, like, man, my perspective up here, right? And your perspective can either take you to higher heights or lower valleys. Your perspective can take you to higher heights or lower valleys. And that is what, came to me. And I wrote it down, and I came across that quote as I was preparing for today. And I want to use a story in the Bible, because there's so much great just so much great nuggets in the Bible that we can really take and apply it to our life, because we can definitely, as opportunities for us to humanize it, right? In this particular story in the Bible, I want to use it as a backdrop, somewhat to illustrate perspective. And I want to provide to you what I believe is, again, just how I am articulating leadership perspective. These are what I would feel is the ingredients. This is what measures leadership perspective. I think leadership perspective is a practice. It is a practice. So it is something that is ever evolving, right? But when I think about the elements, the ingredients, the attributes of leadership perspective, these are the four areas that I feel really sums up leadership perspective and how we should practice leadership perspective. Okay. So the story that I'm referring to is in the Old Testament in Numbers. And this pretty much is dealing with the Israelites, right? Who else? Who else in the Old Testament, if you're familiar with the Bible? And this is a period. Um, the story takes place in Numbers, chapter 13. So if you're familiar with the Bible, this is after Exodus. So this is when the Israelites are exiting out of Egypt, and they're in this. I wouldn't necessarily call it like a how would I call it? Like they're in this transitioning period. Yes, that's a better way. There's in this transitional period where they have now just left Egypt. God has have provided a way for them out of Egypt. They have been in Egypt for over 400 years in enslaved, to the Egyptians. So now God has provided a way them out, and God is pretty much helping them, or in this case ushering them to his promise for the Israelites to send them to a land that's flowing with milk and honey, right? Send them to this promised land, right? And they're in this transitioning period from leaving Egypt to now possessing and entering to the promised land. So in Numbers chapter 13, God tells Moses, hey, Moses, I want you to get 12 leaders from each of the tribes. Okay, so each tribe get one leader, right? To have 12 leaders. So you want you to gather 12 leaders, one from each of the tribes of Israel, and I want you to have them explore the land that I am giving to them. Okay, so Moses he gathers the 12, each person from the tribe of Israel. He gathers the 12 and he said, hey, here's what I want you to do. I want you to go out and explore the land of Canaan. And I want you to, you know, observe the people there. I want you to let us know what type of fruits, the vegetation, what is the soil, is it fertile, is the city fortified, right? So let us know that, right? So I want you to explore the land. So the 12 spies, which they have been known as, or you may have heard them um uh presented in that way, they go out and they explore the land. And they do this for 40 days, family. For 40 days they are exploring this land, right? So they are looking at the trees, as Moses said, hey, observing the people, the soil, is it fertile? And as they're in the land, they even looked at the fruit, brought back some fruit when it was given their report. So they're exploring the land, they come back and they provided their report to Moses and the people, right? And I'm gonna just read just a couple verses, but again, definitely encourage you to read Numbers 13, because it's a wonderful illustration of the power of perspective. Is a wonderful illustration, and even reading Numbers, like, because you have to read even further along to understand get the full understanding of perspective and what it was, how they used it in this particular case here. So I'm gonna read starting with verse 27 of chapter 13. I'm gonna skip around. So again, definitely encourage you to read it. So they gave Moses the account. We went into the land. This is the spies talking. We went into the land to which you sent us, and it does flow with milk and honey. Here is it fruit, right? They even brought some fruit back, as I said, like they got fruit. But the people who live there are powerful. and the cities are fortified and very large. I'm gonna jump down to verse 30. Then Caleb was part of those 12 spies, as well as Joshua, in which you will hear if you read further along, you'll understand Joshua was a key leader in helping them to possess the promised land. But again, he was one of the spies. So Caleb silenced the people before Moses said, "We should go up and take possession of the land, for we can certainly do it." But verse 31, the men who had gone up with him said, "We can't attack those people. They are stronger than we are." And they spread among the Israelites. Verse 32, this is what they did. They spread among the Israelites a bad report. They spread among the Israelites a bad report about the land they had explored. They said the land we explored devours those living in it. All the people, all the people, all the people we saw there are great of size. Okay. We seem like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and we look the same to them. In other words, we seem like grasshoppers, and we'll look like grasshoppers to them. We're not that strong of a people. So, talking about perspective and using this as an illustration, I want to provide to you four, I believe, qualities or four ways to practice perspective, leadership perspective. Okay. Four ways to practice leadership perspective. Number one, we have to practice self awareness. We have to practice self awareness. As relates to leadership perspective, I believe self awareness is really taking a self assessment test of yourself. Do you have the ability to look inwardly and self assess and be honest with yourself? Are you able to look at your shortcomings? Are you able to look at your strengths and your weaknesses? Right. And I believe in self awareness, it's also the level of integrity. Right. Can you be honest with yourself? Can you be honest with yourself? Here's when you think about self-awareness and in that story, here you have 10 spies. There was 12 of them. Two of them are like, yo, we can do this. The other 10 is like, nah, I don't. They lean too much on what they felt they didn't have, in which they started to do bad reports. They spreaded bad reports. Can you be honest? I mean, are you seems like you kind of over exaggerating just a little bit. Self-awareness. Practicing self-awareness is going to help you to practice leadership perspective. Can you do you have the ability to do a self-assessment of yourself? Remove your emotions. Look at something very objectively. Okay? That's self-awareness in leadership practice. Okay? The next thing when you were practicing leadership perspective, we need to understand our beliefs and values. Now, this is really critical because again, I can just imagine Joshua and Caleb talking to the other 10, like, yo, what Caleb, yo, I think we can do this. I think, yo, we can do this. And others like, man, we can't do this, man. Like the fruit good, yeah, look at these fruits. Yeah, the fruit's good, but yo, we can't. Oh no, man, we like grasshoppers and dude. No, we not. We can do this because I believe God has given us this land. God said this is our land, and yes, I believe we can take control over it. Your beliefs and your values. Your beliefs is what you hold to be true. what you hold to be true, your values, what is important to you. And here, Caleb letting you know what I hold to be true is that God has given us this land. What I hold to be true is that, you know what, I can do it. What I hold to be true is that I am an entrepreneur. What I hold to be true is that my family can overcome this, that I'm not like my mom and dad. I can do this. What I hold to be true, your beliefs, your values, what's important to you. Important to me in this particular illustration, are important to Kate. Was like, yo, this is going to help us. This is going to help us to grow as a people. It's going to help us to eat. One thing we talk about, like they didn't have a lot of food, at this time during this transitional period. You transitioning, you in a transitional period. So what you knew, you have let go to now walk into something that you not even unsure about. But one thing you hold to be true is that, nah, I'm here for a reason. I have a purpose. And what's important to me is that, you know what, is that we continue to survive our generation. We continue to be God's people. Beliefs and values helps you to drive your leadership perspective. This is where your behavior comes into. Your behaviors is pretty much is all wrapped up around your beliefs and values. It's derived from your beliefs and values. So in order to lead with leadership perspective, in order to have that type of leadership perspective, I got to make sure I understand what's my beliefs and values and not hide those. No, that's the thing about it. We not hide my beliefs and values. Here's my beliefs and values. Here's what I hold to be true. Here's what is important to me. And this is where we begin to lead by example through our beliefs and values that helps us to set our perspective. Our perspective. The next thing that we have to understand when we're practicing leadership perspective is the power to influence others. Influencing others is so critical when you think about leadership perspective. And that's why when I start really thinking about this topic and really start pondering, like, leadership perspective is one of those things. It intersects other leadership qualities and characteristics. Is one of those foundational traits within leadership, because everyone has perspective, right? Everyone has perspective. And when it comes to the power of your perspective and how it can either bring about growth and change, or it can really become unhealthy and it can be a cancer, right? And it can really start to be really start to become a impediment. Your perspective, influencing others, is understanding the power that you have over others, positively or negatively. Your effects on others, your impact on others is driven by your leadership perspective. And here you have, again, in the story, you have 10 of the 12 spies spreading a bad report to the community that caused them to stay where they are. If you read further, and if you're familiar with um, the Israelites, due to them not having the right perspective, to go into the land that God had promised them, they stayed in the wilderness for 40 years. Because, and I believe it's one of the things, because of the perspective of others that influence the entire community, because of someone else's perspective. That's why influencing others to drive your perspective, we have to understand it can be positive or negative. We can do this, it can be in a very positive light or it can be very negative light. But one of the things that comes with perspective is your ability or you having the power to influence others. So we have to make sure my perspective will influence others. It will influence others. There's no doubt about it. So I have to be mindful of that, that I'm self-aware, that I'm leading through my beliefs and values, because I'm going to influence others based on my perspective. My perspective has the power to influence others. The fourth thing that helps us to practice leadership perspective is exposure. Exposure. This is where you really are beginning to practice open-mindedness. You begin to become open-minded to how to gain perspective, how to broaden your perspective. Because again, I believe leadership perspective is a practice. The way we practice that is by our exposure. We practicing open-mindedness. Okay. This is when it comes, it's so important, because when you think about empathy, when you think about diversity and inclusion, if all of us are in, if all of us are in one room and many of us and all of us look the same, talk the same, have the same background, well, our perspective is all going to be the same. Our perspective is always going to be the same. But if we're making sure that we are exposing ourselves to others that have different perspective, different background, we're now being able to have a diversity of thought. So now we're able to gain perspective. We're able to broaden our perspective. We're able to see things from a different perspective. This is why, again, I said before, diversity inclusion is important, because we can't be in a room with majority having the same perspective and we wonder why. Well, all of y'all look alike. All of y'all from the same background. We need to have a more diversity of thought in order to broaden our perspective, in order to gain better perspective. So how do we practice leadership perspective? First, we have to become self-aware. Self-awareness, having a level of integrity to have that self-assessment, to do a self-assessment of myself, to understand my strengths, my weaknesses. Next, we have to understand and not be ashamed to lead with our beliefs and values. Our beliefs, what you hold to be truth. Our value, what is important to you. This is how we drive our leadership perspective. Next, we got to understand with leadership perspective, as we practice leadership perspective, we have to understand the power of influencing others, because our perspective can either influence others positively or negatively. And then lastly, in order for us to gain perspective of others, us to practice, to continue to have this ever evolving, we have to practice open-mindedness. And how we do that by exposure. What are we being exposed to gain a better perspective? Maybe I need to do something I have no clue, right? I have no familiarity with. Maybe I need to be exposed to a different group of people in order for me to practice empathy, to gain my perspective. Family, this has been helpful to you, something that you can practice. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. And remember that leadership is not a title, but a choice. And today, I choose leadership perspective. I choose self-awareness. I choose my beliefs and values. I understand the power of influencing others. I choose to gain a better perspective by exposure. Till next time, family, be blessed.